All right, I love it. So we're at the hour here. We're still filling in, but I'll go ahead and kind of start kicking us off here. And I love that we have such a global team on the stage right now across the states, China, Andrea, floating around everywhere. I guess you're more of a global citizen, but love the flavor we have up here. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who joined us. Really appreciate you all jumping on. And this is an AMA. I will try, if you have questions as speakers are chatting and you want to bring something up, please raise your hand. We'll try and pull you in so we can kind of keep the flow back and forth. And I'll also save time at the end of the call for questions as well. So I'll try to save 10 to 15 minutes to jump on and kind of have a more open conversation. But to kick things off, I'll just kind of introduce our team. So we have Ree here, who is our copper lead. We have Andrea, the partnership lead for Balancer. We have Glacialis, who is the lead for Hexagon Finance. They're friendly forking Balancer on Avalanche. And we have Jamari, who's the core strategy lead for Snowball Defi. So I think we're going to have a great panel today and kind of get, an update on what we're building, where we're going, and really excited for the future. So with that, Ree, I'd love to kind of hand over to you here and talk about some of the updates we're having coming through the pipe on copper and, the exciting news of the coming week with our work with Hexagon and Balancer.
Yes, thank you, PK, for the intros. And I just want to say welcome, everyone. Welcome to all our new friends. Love to see you all in the Alchemist Discord. And it's been extremely great working with you guys so far and look forward to what's on the horizon. So on the copper side, as you all know, as the Alchemist community knows, the copper community knows, we're always looking to bring quality projects to the platform to run liquidity bootstrapping pools. So we're always evaluating the best way to go about that and where the markets are going, where the trends are going. And so it was extremely exciting to learn that Balancer was working with Hexagon to get a friendly fork up on Avalanche, because we were actually just looking at all the L1s, and Avalanche had extremely high TVL of 11 billion, and it was I think the fourth highest out of L1s, and lots of quality projects being built out there. Very solid throughput, and wallet activity has been exploding on the chain. So it was just great how things lined up. And then we got on a call with the Hexagon team that are bringing the Balancer friendly fork onto Avalanche, and got to know them a little bit, and they seemed like really great guys and knew what they were doing. So the really great opportunity presented itself. Everything's worked out quite well so far. We just actually went live with the copper integration of the Avalanche testnet and Hexagon's deployment on that testnet. So now the testnet is live, and we're going through various QA flows to make sure everything is running smoothly. And really looking forward to the mainnet launch next week, and hosting the first LBP on the Avalanche mainnet. And I think mainnet contracts are deployed. From the Hexagon side, we're just working on integrating everything on the Copper platform, and making sure everything runs as smoothly as possible. So it's been pretty awesome interfacing with the Hexagon team, and really appreciate all the help there. And also excited with this launch to also bring a new curator to the platform, and Jamari from Snowball Defi. and their DAO, their community, specialize in kind of the Avalanche ecosystem. So it's really kind of they have a powerful network, and they understand the ecosystem well. So we think it's going to be a great first line when it comes to filtering quality opportunities and bringing quality liquidity bootstrapping pools to Copper. So that's kind of what's on the horizon. And thank you all for joining.
Awesome. Thanks, Ray. And if I could just ask a follow-up question quickly, could you kind of like go in a little more in depth on, like the purpose and value that our curators serve? Because I think it might not be as accentuated or people really understand. Like when I talk to teams, it's, hey, remember, Copper is permissionless. Come use us, use these like amazing tools. But could you kind of dig in a little bit more on, what these curators really bring to the table?
Sure, definitely. So in a permissionless space, right? Anyone can do and create anything. They can create an LBP. They can launch on chain within a few minutes if they want it. And in this kind of environment, it's a really powerful environment, right? Because it kind of like it has no gatekeepers. Anyone can has this opportunity to interact with the whole world, essentially. And if they have something valuable, they can share it with the whole world. But it also creates a complex situation where, because it's so free, and there is so much information and kind of like so much possible, that sometimes it's really hard to make sense of where the quality opportunities are, and how to highlight them in a space where you can get like 10, 20 LBPs in a day, especially with a chain like Avalanche, where the throughput is so high and the transaction costs are so cheap. So in a situation like that, the curators serve an extremely important purpose. They act as an initial set of analysts and vetters for these projects that launch on chain. Because if you have 20, 30 opportunities, you're not going to have the time to parse through all of them. You're not going to have time to do due diligence on all of them. And so curators and their expertise and experience serve as like an initial filter for those opportunities. And they oftentimes will do deep analysis on these projects, like projects that are serious about building a community, about bringing value. They'll often reach out ahead of time to curators. They'll sync up with them. Curators will ask for additional information. They'll look at their tokenomics. They'll interview them, etc. And then only after that, if the curators think that the project brings value and is legitimate, then they will vote to curate it when their LBP goes live on the platform. So really, kind of that's our solution to solving a problem of too much information, and that's something that happens a lot in crypto, especially when costs are low for chains that are able to deliver on that. Like if you look at OpenSea on any of the L2s, for example, you'll be flooded with a lot of nonsense and really hard to make sense of what's going on. So this is our solution to that problem.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. That was a great explanation for, I think, an amazing solution we're working with some great teams on building. So excited for Snowball to come in. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I think it's also a great way to build relationships between teams, right? So as a curator, you get access to build these relationships and kind of, grow together. It's not just about the team that's launching. So excited for that. So with that, I'd love to slide over to Glacialis and really talk about Hexagon. And just kind of, if you'd like to give an update on kind of where the team is. I know Reed covered a lot of it. I know your LBP is upcoming, but would love to maybe get a once over from you, what you're excited about, and maybe some key points, some key milestones on your roadmap that you'd like to share with the community.
First of all, thank you so much, guys, for having us here. We're really, really happy to have this, to be on this panel tonight. Excited to be here and excited to be working with Copper Launch and everybody else on Avalanche. So, yeah, probably, I guess I could give a little introduction to what Hexagon is, even though it's to some extent actually a complicated mission, if you like. So, Hexagon is a multifunctional platform that we are developing on Avalanche at the moment, and it will really consist of three parts, if you like. The first one, of course, and I'm sure the one that you are most familiar with, is the liquidity bootstrapping protocol, which is forked from Balancer, and it's going to be the very first one on Avalanche. And again, as you guys know very well, we are basically forking the protocol, we're deploying it in Avalanche, and you guys will actually, Copper will probably be operating it and helping us out with it. So the Hexagon team will not be directly, taking care of the launchpad, but we are super excited to be working with you on that. The second one will be a DEX, and this one will also be forked from Balancer, and it's not going to be the first fork actually on Avalanche, but I believe we're still going to bring a lot of innovation to the space, basically, because if you look at the Avalanche ecosystem, you do have a lot of different DEXs and a lot of offer out there, but all of that is from the Uniswap side. So they're all based on the Uni model, and we are going to be basically the main one for based on the Balancer model, and we are the first friendly forkable Balancer on the chain. I think we're going to bring a lot of exciting news because fundamentally the Balancer model works very differently, of course, from the Uni one. It's way more flexible. It offers way more opportunities. I think we could talk about it for like an entire day, pretty much. But just to give you an idea, the fact that you have different weights in the same pool can allow us to create a pool that you would have maybe two assets. One asset would have fairly stable price. The other one would have much more volatile one, probably, perhaps a new token. And by just changing the weights in the same pool, what you can do is you can limit the exposure the users have to impermanent loss. Or because you can put multiple assets in the same pool, up to 8 actually. If you take all of the assets from all the main assets, all the main tokens from one chain, and you put them in the same pool, what you get is like a portfolio. It's almost like an index fund that gives exposures to that one ecosystem. So speaking of Avalanche, let's say that you're gonna take all of the main tokens to Avalanche. You put them in the same pool with say similar ways if you like. And what you have there is like an investor that comes to that pool immediately has exposure to the entire ecosystem. And it's a fantastic news, basically, just an innovation thing. Second, we do have a third product, which is going to be a fork of Avi, and it will be a lending platform. This one will come a little bit later, probably. So next week, we are going to deploy the LBP, and we're going to have our own auction, actually, starting on Monday for 72 hours. First big chance to get our own token for anybody interested. After that, we're going to launch the DEX, and I think this is the first time we say it publicly, but the launch is going to be on the 16th of May. So the official launch of DEX will be 6th of May. You guys are the first one to hear it in the public, and then after a while, we'll probably have the landing platform coming online as well. I would also like to about our background and where we come.
Glacialis, we're losing you a little bit. I think it might just be me, but
Hello?
if you want to rewind just 2 seconds, kind of on the background of your team and where you're coming from, I think that's where you're headed.
Yeah, I think that the last thing that heard was that the DEX is coming, but then missed the details around that.
Oh no! Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Fantastic. Sorry. It's the connection that sometimes like it doesn't help.
No worries.
So no, as I was saying, exactly. Lex is gonna come, and after that, after a little bit, probably we're gonna launch a final third part of the platform, which is a landing platform based on it's gonna be fork of Avid. It's gonna come. My guess is But the DEX is going to launch on the 16th of May. And you guys are the first one to actually know and hear the date. The official date is going to be 16th of May. So basically, yeah, what I wanted to say is also a little bit about the background of where a Hexagon comes. And Hexagon is really, if you like, the outcome multiple partnerships getting together. The platform is backed by Terra, so it will be centered on USD. Terra is committed to provide a certain amount of liquidity. We are an official forward balancer, of course, and we're the first official forward balancer on Avalanche. Obviously, we're working with Defrost Finance. Part of our team is actually in common with Defrost because they're helping us out with business development as well as marketing. As you guys know, we're also working with Copper Avalanche, obviously, for the LBP. So you have 4 different platforms getting together and working on one bigger project on Avalanche. And yeah, basically, I think that you could say that's an introduction to the project. I'm happy to take any question that could come, that any one of you guys may have.
Okay, and I think we're still losing a few bits and pieces here. We'll try and push out a recap, and we'll connect with you, Glacialis, to maybe have some key notes. But I'm hearing, just to play it back, 16th of May, the DEX is live. You have partnerships with Terra, with Defrost, and obviously with Balancer as key partnerships in the growth of the Hexagon team. Is there another TLDR bullet you want to throw on the end of that? I just want to make sure everyone heard clearly.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what we're doing.
Okay, great. And I do have a question. So obviously you're highlighting some of the amazing features that Balancer brings to the table. Are there any unique challenges that you think Avalanche presents given the Balancer model, or things that you might be looking at through a different lens given the Avalanche ecosystem?
Yeah, so the Avalanche ecosystem is really good from pretty much every perspective. It's fast growing. I think it's a very healthy ecosystem so far. Like you get good quality projects that are developing really cool stuff. But on the other hand, the balancer model has a challenge in its own right, which is a fairly complicated model. And I think for the average users, it might be sometimes hard to grasp how it works or understand the possibilities involved in it. I think that is the main challenge for us. I think what we really want to work on at this point is trying to explain users, explain investors why we're different, we're doing, why it is a good idea to invest in Hexagon or balance of port, basically. So I think the main challenge is really, is really how complicated the model could be. So you have to kind of really reach out to the community, really try to explain, really try to understand the concerns of users, because everybody kind of knows how the Uniswap model works. I don't think everybody on Avalanche and elsewhere as well knows how the balancer one works. So I think this kind of communication will be the main challenge we're going to face in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's communication is key, and education. Like I feel like always in crypto, right? Education is a constant thing, right? Even when you think you know something. Even when you think you know, you have to go read the paper again, listen to the Bankless podcast again, and then you forget, and you thought you had it, and then you can't explain it to someone. So definitely,
Especially so for innovative products, and especially so I think for DeFi. I mean, CeFi is way more user friendly from that perspective, perhaps. But in DeFi, you really do have to go out of your way to try and help users out, help users help you fundamentally. And if you're deploying a model such as Balancer, which is so complicated but also so powerful, that becomes 10 times more important because you really, really want users to understand there's a very good chance here, there's a very good opportunity. Just follow through every step, and we're gonna make it work.
Sure. Yeah. And kind of jumping back into your growth here and your upcoming LBP and deployment on the 16th, can you kind of explain how the Flake token works in the ecosystem? Is it going to work how BAL works? I know we have VE BAL, and we've had a lot of information coming out around that. Is there any like light education you'd like to provide on kind of the purpose and how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Flake token will be this who's going to be the Hexagon token, and there will be indeed a V version, a state version of Flake that basically it's built with an idea of like rewarding long-term users, rewarding users that are joining the platform for the long term. They are committed to the platform. They're committed to the project. So that will give you access to governance opportunities as well as extra staking opportunities, which I think are going to be very interesting. What I could say also about the tokenomics coming up is that there will be, as we were saying, I mean, there's going to be an auction on Monday for 72 hours. That's going to be the first really big chance to get Flake for users fundamentally. And as you know, this will be the first LBP auction Avalanche using our protocol, and it's also going to be going to happen through Copper Launch fundamentally. They're going to auction 5 million tokens. If there is any interest, that would be the first chance. Another thing I'd like to say again about the tokenomics is we are right now working on the pools that we're going to deploy launching, and we are looking at probably 10 pools immediately, as well as a set of partnerships that we have been developing with aggregators. So I think the next week or so will be, I'd say, pretty interesting and pretty full of news for users.
Great. Thanks so much for that overview and what's coming up next for Hexagon. Before we jump over to Snowball and learn a little bit more about what they're building and get to know Jamari, anything you'd like to end with? And again, I'll save time for more questions from the audience towards the end of the hour.
Probably. I mean, over the top of my head, this is a tough one. What I would like to add to this, actually, I would say overall, I think what the Hexagon Finance really brings to the table is innovative new models. Fundamentally, what you got on different dexes and what you got on different platform Avalanche is something that sometimes can be a little bit similar to each other. And Hexagon will be something totally new, a totally different experience from that perspective. And we own this to Balancer. We own this to the model that is completely different. So I think it will be something very interesting for the more enterprise and more curious among users who might experience something different. They will be attracted to this.
Okay, awesome, great. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have more questions from the audience when we jump towards the end of the call. But Jamari, I'd love to hear a bit about Snowball DeFi and get to know you. I'm sure, well, I guess I'm not sure. I'm guessing much of the audience might not be familiar with Snowball, but would love to kind of open it up and get to know you.
Hey, one and all, it is a pleasure to be here. Hopefully you're all having a great day. When we talk about Snowball, I think it's important to understand that Avalanche is actually a very new network. It's been around for a little bit over a year. It launched in 2020, near the end of the year. And its very first dApp, or the very first major dApp that came was Pangolin, which was a decentralized exchange. And there was nothing else really on Avalanche besides a couple of exchanges. The land was barren. And then, because of the reward, Snowball was created as an auto compounder and yield optimizer and expander of DeFi on Avalanche. And what that really came is that they came as a fair launch. We launched as a fair launch, and we started auto compounding the rewards for Pangolin. But the vision was always to actually start increasing the DeFi applications on Avalanche to really leverage the awesome speed, utilization, diversity, and innovation that was on the Avalanche network, and specifically the C chain, which was using the Ethereum virtual machine. So after launching, with the fair launch, they implemented governance within the very first month. That governance actually was very unique, the first version, because it allowed them to use the liquidity that they was providing for Snowball as a means of voting. So people could actually provide liquidity and also vote using that same asset. So that was kind of unique. And then they launched the Stable Vault, which turned into Axial, which was a stable exchange. So as you can put in like stable coins and exchange them with low slippage, similar to how Curve works. It was using the Saddle Finance code base. And from there, Snowball really just continued to grow and then expand its expertise and connect with other projects. It actually performed the very first launch pad of another DAO on the network. It was the first DAO to actually merge other DAOs together. There was an algorithmic stablecoin that it took leadership over after it launched to help support it with its further development and community orientation. And Snowball really has just been the primary lead on Avalanche around the decentralized governance for the goal of expanding the access and accessibility and utilization of decentralized finance on the Avalanche network. So it was really exciting when we heard about Hexagon and Copper coming, because that was the continued expression of the things we were excited about, which was bringing new techniques and means of manipulating and accessing people's assets. Balancer, the Balancer Forks, which is Hexagon, provides a very distinct approach to creating asset pools and moving between them. And Copper was very innovative in his way of its leveraging those same algorithms to actually layer on top an experience that could help new assets launch. And for us, that was directly in line with our vision, because we've been launching new products all the time, and all of it was about expanding the accessibility of projects to people in this space and outside of the space. So for the opportunity to be a curator, we were like, absolutely, there's no way we're not going to participate in this if it's possible. So Snowball overall, in a nutshell, is what people call a venture studio DAO, where we focus on the development, expansion of new protocols that will expand the DeFi and or expand Avalanche's space. We also have a small NFT market, which is a kind of a small curated one around Snowball-themed items in most cases. We have Snowball also in this governance system. It uses a conviction-based voting system. So it was actually one of the first VE implementations, not just on Avalanche, but in general. First, it was actually Curve who implemented, then Pickle Finance, and then actually Snowball. Snowball launched actually third across the ecosystem, which was a conviction voting system. And that system is called XNOB. We have over 60% of all Snowballs locked for up to a year and a half currently. So that's actually a really high engagement level of people actually believing and trusting in what's going to be produced by Snowball. And that's our governance mechanism. It's people that are buying in long-term to the vision and contributing to seeing that executed. Also, we have a variety of assets that are building into our treasury, from Axio, which are stable swap, to Lava, which is a liquid staking solution, to FiHub, which is coming as a way of onboarding new users into the space as a DeFi dashboard and learn and earn solution, and then also Teddy, which is an algorithmic stablecoin. So we're continually looking to build out, invest in, support, and develop with other projects. We're also advisors to Fresh Coast Blockchain. And we have a close relationship with Ava Labs, with Pangolin. The Trader Joe founder came from Snowball. Half of the team of Pangolin came from Snowball. Sherpa, which is a privacy transaction layer forked off of Tornado. Half of that team came from Snowball. So we've really been part of the growing ecosystem and helping it become realized.
Jamari, I think you just came through my computer screen and like smacked me in the face with energy. Thank you. That was amazing. I love that. I love it. That was so much. And that's amazing. I know there's going to be a ton of questions for you. And I'll just pick around the edges here at a few things that came to mind. Because when we last spoke, I thought one of the amazing things I loved to hear was the engagement from your community, which is great. I mean, looking at the Alchemist ecosystem, we love engaging with our community and finding ways to keep the community engaged and participating. Could you touch on maybe like high level thinking of how you engage your community? Is there anything unique on the Avalanche side of things that you think are reflected in your community?
Currently, I mean, our community is very reflective of how most people communicate and kind of have existing pipelines. We use Discord, Telegram, Twitter. We've had a strong showing in those spaces. We're actually not quite as strong on Reddit and then YouTube as some people like Reddit. A lot of our community has never quite grasped the mechanism of amplifying information via that mechanism. But very strong on Discord as a working space and Telegram as a discussion space. One of the things that we did invest in that we are going to be coming out soon is actually our notification system to allow push notifications. So we actually put out a bounty in one of the summits for a push notification system that connects to on-chain and off-chain events. So we are planning on implementing that within the next couple of months as a way of increasing the engagement and accessibility of our community members, so that when really valid things come up or things that people want to hear about, we can push that to them directly via mobile, via text, email, and whatnot. So that is something that we're looking at implementing to better improve our way of accessing our community.
Okay, awesome. No, thank you. I know Discord, I think I have 1 million Discord servers up all the time. So I love it, but also, Discord has its challenges it needs to solve. But appreciate that overview. And for those of us who are less familiar with Avalanche, you kind of listed off a bunch of different protocols and kind of how Snowball has ties to all of them. And that these Avalanche OGs are coming through Snowball and really growing around you. Or can you kind of give the lay of the land here for Avalanche in terms of your views on the growth of the ecosystem, maybe where it's heading? Again, doesn't need to be super drilled down, but kind of a high level thinking from someone who's kind of so involved in the space.
Yes, absolutely. So when you look at Avalanche, the first thing to know is that the leading decentralized exchange currently is Trader Joe. And Trader Joe was actually not the first mover in this space, but when they came out, they offered something that Pangolin was not offering, which was a little bit more flexibility in how pools were allocated, and a more robust team for marketing and positioning. So they really established a community around not just the memes, but the functionality and the oncoming features that they were creating. So they end up launching a lending and borrowing protocol on top of their decentralized exchange, and now they worked on RJO, which was their version of actually Copper, which was limiting in some ways because they put barriers of entry on it by making you have to have Joe. And then they now launching what's called JoePeg, which is their NFT marketplace. So that's like one of the primary wins, I think, on the Avalanche network. And then when you look around that, you see a lot more interesting things that are happening that might not always be getting the same limelight. You have Dexalot, which is a central limit ordering book that's running on the C chain. So similar to how when you trade stocks, you can actually buy at a market price, and you have a little bit more trade efficiency because you're removing the necessity of providing the market on both sides, which is what the Uniswap AMMs and Balancer does. You can actually directly put up the asset against some posted price. So Dexalot is a central limit ordering book. That's very interesting. There's also Arrow Markets coming, which is currently on testnet, which provides options trading using some unique approaches that they're trying to kind of make it more accessible to common users. That's actually some very interesting spot. On the stable swap side, there's this really novel implementation of swapping stable coins against each other. If you're on Ethereum, you're familiar with Curve as the mechanism of swapping stable coins, and their algorithm and approach being the main one. On Avalanche, we do have Curve, we have Axial, which is from Snowball, but we also have Platypus. And Platypus is currently leading in this space because of its novel implementation, which actually uses oracles to actually kind of establish the price of each asset itself, and then allow each asset to kind of sit by itself when you're trading. So you're not really pooling all your DAI together with the USDC and USDT. The DAI sits on its own, and then they have this kind of correlation between the assets and each individual pool. And that is kind of reliant on this Oracle system to really support it and maintain its solvency. So that's a really novel approach to stablecoin swaps, which allows a little bit more efficiency for more popular stablecoins, not so much for like lower cap stablecoins. What else is interesting in space? GameFi is really, really big on Avalanche as well. We have things such as Wrestling Verse, which is coming, which is creating, which is getting pro wrestlers that are actually becoming the brands and wrestlers within their in-game universe. Things like Ragnarok, which sold on Ethereum, but they're building on Avalanche with their subnets. And subnets is basically a way of creating a subset, a chain basically that's acting as a subset of the validators, or the people that's actually validating the Avalanche network, to be able to remove some of the congestion on the C chain, but still allow that same support from existing validators. So that subnet is where a lot of projects are going, like Gravita, which is kind of one of the projects that are pursuing to be kind of like Axie and Infinity. You also have GameFi projects like Imperium, Heroes Chained, and similar projects which are kind of fantasy based, the sci-fi based, which are building and targeting, leveraging their work on subnets. A big kind of GameFi thing people talk about recently is Castle Crush, which is an existing game similar to Clash of Clans that was already a mobile game, has millions of users, and they're creating an NFT layer, and they're bringing that to Avalanche. Like clearly, there's been a bunch of play to earn stuff, from small fantasy stuff to dragons to decentralized IP, which is kind of Hatchy Pockets. There's a really cool thing that launched recently called Lost Worlds, which is a location-based NFT platform, which basically provides the tools for people to be able to mint in NFTs based upon their location. So basically, like if they recently did this called World. So depending on what continent you were in, you were able to mint an NFT for your continent. They're doing this thing called Portals in the future, and I believe they're working on something that's similar to an Ingress or Pokemon Go experience with one of the things I already mentioned. And yeah, the GameFi is really just growing the idea of intellectual property and how that works in a decentralized space. Is a really big narrative for Avalanche right now. One thing that we are missing, if people are builders, is we are missing generative art. We don't really have a lot of generative art type of organizations or work being done on Avalanche. So that is on the NFT side something that we're missing. Okay, hopefully that was a pretty broad sweep of Avalanche.
Oh yeah, no, that was a broad sweep. I was taking notes. I hope everyone was grabbing names of projects to research. I really appreciate that overview there. And I just like to end on one question here, because when I was researching Snowball and getting to know a bit more about you, was that education seems to be a big key piece. So you have your educational tutorials and videos on Snowball. Yes. Would love to hear kind of where you're kind of growing that, and kind of if people are trying to use it, how you're building that out to kind of support the community.
Yes, funny enough, that educational material and the work that Snowball had done on the implementation side of auto compounding is currently being abstracted into a whole new project or product called My Fi Hub, our financial hub. And the goal of that is actually to be an onboarding mechanism for people new into the space, and not just necessarily new into the space like cold, like never had cryptocurrency, but those who have never moved their money off of exchanges or interacted with DeFi. We want to take all that educational stuff and really create courses that follow you as you take actions. So if you're coming in and you heard about some token like you heard that a new liquidity token is launching on Copper, like that you would come in and would say, liquidity launch happening. What is a liquidity bootstrapping as you're doing it? And what is this asset that you're about to buy? What is a bonding curve? And you're learning these things as you're taking the actions to actually get those tokens, so you can earn your money as you're learning about it. So that's really what we're really abstracting out all this experience into, is an onboarding kind of educational white glove experience.
That's great to hear, and that resonates really, really deeply with, I know, the Copper team. I'm sure many people here, because building in just a permissionless world, we need to educate. We want people to know what's going on. We don't want people to get rugged or do something that they didn't mean to do. And having these easy access and good tools is a huge part of trying to move forward.
No, it is. And one of the things we're doing that's novel, I think that kind of matters for that is we're creating this thing called, we're working on a smart contract list standard, which would basically allow us to tag and write attestations or notes about all smart contracts and kind of what their functionality does. It'll be a little bit crowdsourced, but that will allow, as you're taking actions, you can see information about what you're interacting with. Is this an audited contract? Is this the contract you thought you were interacting with? And it's very similar to token lists from Uniswap and that ilk, except we're smart contract focused and the information that's important for that. So that's going to be really the undergirding of that whole system.
Okay. Super interesting. We'll be following that closely. And thank you, Jamari, for this great overview. We will jump over to Andrea, but if you have questions for Jamari, as I'm sure many of you do, we'll get to those in just a second. But Andrea, time for you to hit me with the energy and match what Jamari just brought to the table.
While Jamari was talking, I was drinking a couple of coffees just to keep up the same energy.
Good. Yeah, so I would love to hand over to you here, right? You are the one and only the balancer team over here that we are built on top of, that Hexagon is building on, and you have a strong partnership. So would love to just get like your thoughts on balancer growth and kind of what you're bringing to the community at large and kind of your excitement for the move to Avalanche.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me, and it was a real pleasure to listen to Jamari and everything and all the things that he shared. Very interesting stuff. I never had the pleasure to talk to him directly, but I'm sure we'll have an occasion in the future to do so. So first of all, I take care of partnerships at the Balancer DAO, and since I joined, what I've noticed was the lack of interest for, let's say, the Balancer core team to expand on other chains. Okay, so they were focusing more, extensively on, of course, on mainnet, and then of course Polygon and Arbitrum, but there was no real interest on going anywhere else. And I also believe that there were very valid points. Usually when you have to expand to different chains, you also tend to dilute, the liquidity mining program. So you're gonna go. Basically, you have a problem of, fragmenting liquidity. So I totally understood their vision, the core, the Balancer Lab core team vision. But at the same time, I'm a strong believer of the Balancer technology and what the Balancer technology can do, and how important it is as a fundamental, building block of the DeFi ecosystem. Okay, so to me, it's very important to see Balancer and the Balancer technology everywhere. Okay, not only on those 3 specific chains, but it should be in every single chain out there. So, and that's how everything started. The fact that we were not on Avalanche, to me, was a big issue. I mean, I definitely see Avalanche as one of the main places where a lot of potential, with a lot of potential, and where a lot of stuff are happening. I see the way the DeFi ecosystem is handled by Luigi and all the DeFi team that takes care of the DeFi ecosystem at Avalanche, and I can see a lot of potential. So the next step was, how do we bring the Balancer technology to Avalanche without having to, basically get involved in conversation with the core team and give opportunities to others to also leverage this technology. And after a couple of, let's say, failed attempts, I finally met Michele, which is Glacialis here. And we started to talk about this possibility or this opportunity. And we more or less, we found right away, we were pretty much on the same page from the very beginning. The fact that we wanted to be involved in a way, the Balancer DAO wanted to be involved in a way. And we want to also make sure that the team was a valid team and a team that with a solid background and that could actually deliver a good product on the Avalanche ecosystem. And that's how everything started. Now, Avalanche, of course, and Hexagon are the first approved balancer technology, balancer decks, balancer powered decks that, let's say, they've been approved before their launch. So a lot of work has been done to understanding how to make this thing happen. But I'm super happy and confident that Glacialis and the rest of the team will deliver an amazing product, and that will make us, proud of this product, and we're super happy to have them as part of the Balancer family in the future.
Thank you for the trust. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. It's a pleasure, my friend. It's a pleasure.
Likewise. It's our pleasure.
Thank you for that overview, Andrea. And I will save my questions. I know we have 15 minutes left, so I'd like to open it up to the floor now. So if you have a question in the audience, please raise your hand and we'll bring you on stage to come on here and ask away. See how shy everybody is.
I see Joy here over there. I remember that guy. I know that guy.
I think I can recognize quite a few people in the audience, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, if you move around the file long enough, it's just like, oh, I know that person.
Ree, while we're waiting for an audience member to raise their hand, do you have anything? I know you've been silent for a while now. Do you have any questions you want to come up and talk to our partners about?
I guess what kind of projects? I wanna ask Jamari a question. What kind of projects are you, besides you mentioned generative NFT art projects, but what kind of other projects are you looking or excited to see come to Avalanche, and what are you guys most, I guess, interested in growing out as a venture studio?
Yeah, so from the venture studio perspective, our primary mission was around decentralized finance. So really filling in the gaps of missing pieces that are necessary for creating the foundation for kind of this for future financial institutions is really the way we think. It's around how do you create the space that can replace the Bank of America, J.P. Morgan Chases, the New York Stock Exchange, within a more decentralized, accessible manner. So that's really our primary focus. But things that I kind of see or look at that kind of are still needed, aside from like things that I like, which is generative art on Avalanche, is also there's continued development space, I think, on Avalanche for things that are relating the off-chain world to the on-chain world. Our oracles right now that doesn't have the verified random functions, and the oracle systems from Chainlink aren't as robust yet on Avalanche as we need for some things. So kind of like around the real estate market, kind of assets will still be interesting to see. I think a lot of chains are looking at that. We don't have anything really pursuing that direction on Avalanche at the moment. Also was been interested. I mean, we don't have a really strong synthetics related assets on Avalanche right now. The robustness of derivative assets is actually really low on Avalanche, and I think the people are missing. Derivative assets provide this accessibility and ability to make like indexes or provide interest-bearing assets in a way that is actually a stronger basis for building for financial products upon, and they're not being leveraged sufficiently to really not drawing the type of capital that's necessary to really sustain those. But that's an area that is really open as well. Let's see. I talked about generative art, kind of off-chain stuff, which is real estate, and then the derivative products. Those are a couple of big ones. I'm sure I'll think of something as soon as I shut up.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Hope to see some of those come through the LBPs and seeing them get curated. Yeah, we'll see how this plays out, given that I think it's the first time there's like a permissionless way to launch something on Avalanche. So will be interesting to see how that plays out and how this space grows.
Absolutely. And we also need more DAOs on Avalanche. Funny enough, we actually have only a few DAO centric or organizations. We have we have a lot of decentralized products or decentralizing products. But in regards to governance, active governance, that's actually it's pretty sparse on Avalanche, and it's interesting because I know that there's quite a few on Ethereum, but it's ineffective sometimes because of the cost. So people go to Snapshot as their means of doing it. On Avalanche, it's actually pretty cost effective to do voting. It's not free, but it's more cost effective to do voting on Avalanche and a lot of these other EVMs. Because the gas cost is reduced. So I would expect to see an explosion of proposals and activity in that area. But I think there's still room to go in that direction. So
For
yeah, we're still
sure.
waiting for more tools like
Yeah,
Aragon
would be interesting to see like if also like on-chain curation becomes a thing. Like on-chain, there's so much information and parsing through this info is pretty difficult. Like, it's present in across the board, like from news to looking at the next big NFT project or next big idea, and everybody has something to say. So this could be a way to add skin in the game for actually kind of like backing something.
Absolutely.
Seems we have a very shy audience today, which is okay. We can ask a few more questions. We have some time with these great guests. Glacialis, I just want to jump back to you briefly. You mentioned a few of your backers, and I don't know how familiar the community is with teams like Defrost. Could you give maybe a light overview of kind of who they are and where people can go learn a bit more about them?
Sure, I would love to. So basically, Defrost was currently one of the main stablecoins that is native to Avalanche, to the Avalanche ecosystem, basically. Um, and the way that the Defrost platform works is you can go over to their UI, you can commit your assets to it, your LPs basically. So if you have, let's suppose you have, you have assets, let's say on Benchy, right? So on the lending platform, and you're getting maybe Y from that. What you can do is you can connect your wallet to Defrost, and you can use those LPs from Benchy to mint their token, which is called H2O, and it is the stablecoin itself. And for that, you will get some rewards in Melt, which is their governance token. So that's pretty much how the system works. Yeah, they are basically. I mean, we are working really closely with Defrost. Our team is partly in common. And yeah, so surely there's plenty of information out about them if anybody is looking at it. And I do think that Hexagon in the future, of course, our focus at the moment is in future as well. Is going to be Terra because we are backed by Terra, and so we're going to build a platform around USD, which is going to be the main stablecoin. But I do think there's going to be some space for H2O as well, for sure. We're definitely going to have an H2O pool, a pool where H2O is part of the mix down the line. So we have very good, I would say we have a very good relationship with them, as well as with One Chain. Now, One Chain is not present on Avalanche. They have their own blockchain, and they're helping us out in terms of tech support, especially engineering support and coding is also partly outsourced to them.
Cool. I have another question for you, Glacialis. So with the Hexagon launching and the protocol kind of going live, what kind of are you going to have any sort of incentives for teams to bring liquidity to Hexagon, and what does that look like? How are you thinking about that problem? What is your strategy for it?
Sure. No, yes, we will have incentives for liquidity, of course. We are working. We're gonna have incentives. First of all, of course, paid out in flake. That is the main one. At the moment, to be very honest, we cannot share too many details about which platform will be incentivized because we're still talking with the different partners about which ones will actually get incentives and how we're gonna go about it. What I can say is that yeah, first of all, there will be incentives in flakes. There might be incentives also in other tokens, depending if our partners are willing and interested in providing them. But again, I cannot be super clear about it because the conversation is still going on. Um, what I can bring attention to is our actual voting mechanism. So we have a voting mechanism that is going to be dualistic. Part of the vote, basically the team, the core team, will be able to decide on certain tools that will get incentives. But there will be part of the incentives that will definitely be managed by the community through voting. And this is because we want to maintain a healthy balance between having kind of, if you like, centralized, sort of efficient approach where one can build business relationship with different platforms and in the interest of growth for everybody. But we want to balance that out with community participation and really get the grassroots involved and hearing what our community will to do, get people to vote for the projects that they like.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that, Glacialis. And we are closing in on the hour here. So just want to give another chance to the audience. If anyone out here, not naming any names, Joe, Santa, if they have any great questions they'd like to ask our guests before we wrap up, I'll just leave it open for a moment. Man, next time I'm going to name this not AMA, and I bet we'll have a lot of people wanting to ask questions.
That happens, right?
All right, it's all good. Ree, I'd love to hand it over to you as a copper lead to kind of give just a light close here before we just shut it off. But I'd like to just thank everyone for joining. Oh, we have a hand up. Goodness.
It's Jomari looking to join back in.
Oh. Jomari. Thank you. I got a hand.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes, no. I do have a final question though. Like, as you guys are looking at launching, what does success look like to you for Hexagon and Copper? Like, if everything went the way that you guys desired and planned, what would that look like in 1 year?
I'm not sure. Is the question for Hexagon?
For both of us. Here, you can go ahead, Glacialis, if you'd like to answer from a Hexagon perspective, and then Ree, if you'd like to jump in from a Copper perspective. I think we can kind of give our 2 cents there. It's a great question.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good question. Thanks, Jomari.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, a good question, but also a hard one. I mean, where do you put the ceiling for success, right? Like, what would qualify? I would say, from our perspective, fundamentally, success will look like building Hexagon in 2 ways. First of all, as an established DEX as well as landing platform. Want to build it in a way that it's one of the main players of the chain to some extent. Without any numbers, it's super hard, I think, in DeFi or in crypto in general to give any number, really. But having it out there as an established platform definitely be one goal. Second, we really do want to bring the balancer technology over to because I'm also personally a fan of it. I really do like it, and I think they have a lot to, balancer really has a lot of potential to improve DeFi in general. So we need that technology. We want those tools to be available, be understood on Avalanche. I think that's how success will look like for the tax and lending platform. As well as, I mean, from the launchpad perspective, although this is kind of a question that perhaps is better, but as a provider of the underlying protocol, we say that having new projects coming over, a healthy growth of new platforms that can bootstrap the liquidity using the LBP And I don't think we've really spoken much about the LBP here, but it is a really interesting way to bootstrap your liquidity, completely different from IDOs fundamentally. So having new projects using it, understanding the possibilities, having investors and users understand the possibilities implied in LBP is really what we're looking for. So if in 1 year, we are an established platform, we have enough TVL, the ecosystem knows us and know the potential from this model, I would personally be happy.
Okay,
That's a
Ree,
great
bring us
answer.
home. Yeah, where does
Yeah,
knowing that, where is Copper in a year with on Avalanche and
for,
Hexagon?
for sure. So as we're hearing, like Avalanche is really promising, young chain, a little over a year old. There's a lot happening, but there's not nearly as much activity as there ought to be, given like the benefits that it provides. So I really think for Copper, Copper can be seen as an entry point into the Avalanche ecosystem for new projects. So success looks like seeing, like dozens of launches and projects brought to Avalanche through Copper. It's permissionless, it's cheap, the collateral requirements are not very high. So for many ideas, especially on the experimental side. So Jomari mentioned DAOs not having a strong presence yet, or other more experimental ideas. This could be an opportunity for teams to dive into that without a lot of barriers to entry. So removing those barriers to entry and reducing the friction for what it takes to launch a community, to form around an idea, to get a set of vested stakeholders in that idea and really grow it together. We're looking to really lower that barrier for the Avalanche ecosystem. And my thesis and what my hope and what I hope the success will turn out to be is dozens of new projects launched on Avalanche through Copper, growing the Avalanche ecosystem and really showcasing what introducing permissionlessness and the power of the token distribution mechanism that liquidity bootstrapping pools bring to the table in helping create a growth spurt for communities on Avalanche.
Thank you, Ree. Really love that. And Andre, I noticed you came off mute. I want to give you the chance here. If you had a vision for Balancer where they view the growth of LBPs and Hexagon in a year, do you have any color you'd like to throw on here and close us out?
Well, LBPs, they represent some sort of, the gate to Web3. And I think they are, an important part of what, Copper has built so far. They represent, of course, the underlying technology. And Copper has been great on, let's say, leveraging this technology. How I see it in the future? Well, I see a multi-chain where Copper is going to be the main actor, hopefully, and we're here to support you guys and give you the infrastructure and support you guys need to achieve that success. So, yeah.
I really appreciate that, Andrea, and yeah, I mean, I think what you guys have built at Balancer is incredible, and I will, I'll leak a little bit of alpha here. It's only the beginning, even of what's possible with LBPs. Like we haven't even, we've barely scratched the surface. It's way beyond what everyone has seen so far, and I think the use cases around it are just endless, and it just takes innovating on the execution and utilizing the mechanism in creative ways, and most importantly, making it easy for users to understand how to utilize it. So that's, I think, a common thread. Like the technology itself is incredible. It's just that what needs to be done more of is building simple tools to leverage it for people to not have to go extremely deep into the the details of the protocol, where they can understand what the value add is in a more intuitive way. So really excited to keep building on this, and thank you for your continued support here.
My pleasure, my friend.
All right. With that, just one last thank you to Jamari, to Andrea, to Glacialis, and Ree. And also thank you to our audience. Really appreciate having such a robust group of people here. Yeah, thank you all so much.
Thanks all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, guys. Bye.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.